Hello and welcome to Sensei podcast. This is Manos Brilakis discussing with leaders in the field of CTO and complex PCI. Sensei means teacher or master in Japanese. The goal of the Sensei podcast is to help you learn and improve in CTO and complex PCI so that you can become the best that you can be and offer your patients the best possible results. Hello everyone and welcome to Sensei podcast. It is my great pleasure to introduce our guest today, Dr. Benjamin Faurie from the Infirmerie Protestante de Lyon. He was in Grenoble for many years. He's also the founder of Electroduser, a company, so a lot of innovation as well. And as we'll find out, he is also an ex-professional snowboarder. So a lot of talents there. So Benjamin, thanks again. Welcome to the podcast and thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Manos. It's a great honor to be with you. I don't know if I have many skills, but what I'm sure is that I have passion of sports, passion of my job.
I think it's both. Skills and passion, which is actually a great combination. But maybe someone always start asking people, how did their career start? Like, did you always wanted to become a cardiologist? As you said, you were a professional snowboarder. Tell us a little bit about how all these tensions and choices came up.
Yes, funny. So I was born in a small city around Lyon, by the way. And I used to ski a lot and to snowboard a lot and more, and I became sponsored. And then I became pro. That means companies, different US companies, by the way, and Canadian companies sponsored me and then pay me and send me to different countries for snowboarding. And by the way, I was sponsored by a Canadian sponsored in Vancouver. And then in Vancouver, I started to study medicine in my small city. And I dreamed to do a fellowship in Vancouver in St. Paul's Hospital at this time. But then I did my residency and my first fellowship in Grenoble because cardiology teaching was not so bad, was good. And I could do a snowboard in the morning and walk in the afternoon, or the opposite, and keep on my dream going. And then I did my residency, and then I did my fellowship. Unfortunately, not in Vancouver, but in Quebec City. And it was the first time I met so many good people. All my masters, they used to be 14 at this time. Just before that, by the way, Stéphane Renfray came in that hospital. It was in 2005, 2006. But I learned almost everything in interventional cardiology, I would say regular PCI on those 2 years, with Gérald Barbeau for complex PCI, Olivier Bertrand for complex PCI and transradial approach. It was my first patient, and Josep Rodescabo at the very early days of structural, but it was not my passion at this time. And then I moved back to Grenoble, where I start directly to be a postdoc fellow in the University Hospital for 2 years. And then I brought back this transradial approach at this time in my area. It was the early beginning, and I think it's one of the things that built me as a career, because I had to fight to prove safety and efficacy of this technique at these times of transfemoral approach for complex PCI. And I remember that at the early days, I was not allowed to treat STEMI patients in the night through radial. But at 2 hours in the morning, I say, I don't give a flying. I go with radial, and I prove this. I built some small workshop, and I built a meeting in Chamonix, by the way. The name was Transradial Approach and Innovation for Interventional Cardiology. And it lasts for 6 years, from 2009 to 2013. And I made many good meetings with that. I met Gérald Barbeau, Fajadet, many people, and Stéphane Renfray, because my passion was moving from radial to CTO and complex cases. And that's quite that. And then I moved after this 2 years at a university hospital. I moved to a private clinic, a private hospital in Grenoble, where I succeed to a very good guy, Dr. Rossignol, very famous in France for transradial approach, one of the first in France to do this with Yves Louvard and Jean Fajadet. And he opened my mind because I remember at 60 years old, he learned how to do CTO-PCI, how to do rotablator, how to do FFR. And I like this way of mind, very open-minded guy despite his old age. And it was really one of my first master. And in France, it's sometimes a bit more difficult to do so in private hospital because you have to be very good, not to have big complication. Otherwise, you cannot work so well. So I came like this to the complex PCI, but before I remember the first CTO PCI I did, the retrograde PCI I did in Quebec City during my fellow. It was in 2005. One of my master came back from Europe PCR, seeing a Japanese guy doing this, and we did a retro CTO PCI, but we crossed with the I don't remember, maybe Boston guy wire. Whole guy wire, and we were a bit stuck. What we do? The balloon is too short to overcome, so we made a rendezvous wire without saying that name at this time, and I say, this is what I want to do. And so when I was back in France, I just met at the beginning Yves Louvard and Thierry Lefebvre, who came in my hospital to train me. And then I was very lucky to meet the British mafia, James Pratt, Coleman Ratty, and Simon Walsh, because Bridgepoint before and Boston Scientific was looking for a proctor to spread their technique at this time. And I jumped into that team. I went to do mini fellowship in Belfast with Colm and Simon. It was great. And I really like their state of mind because, sorry to speak so many times, but I like the way of thinking of the hybrid approach. When I saw your book, your publication with Bill Lombardi, Aaron Grantham, etc., I read every single word of the special issue of catheterization. I don't know if you remember in 2009. And I say, oh, this train is going fast. Either I jump it, either I stay on the road and I criticize everybody doing opening a CTO PCI. And that's a bit like I jump. So they came also in Grenoble to train me. And I fall in love with this technique and all these innovations.
So it's essentially, you've been innovating ever since you were a kid, it looks like. You were going through different routes, but maybe go back one step. So you said you were doing professional snowboarding, right? And that's a very demanding career. I mean, I can imagine, but I think to train and to go to meetings, I presume. So how did you able to do that and also do the medicine on the side?
It's a question I often hear, but again, it's just about passion. And when you're passionate, you find time. And instead of getting drunk from the Thursday to the Sunday, like my colleagues, I go up in the mountain, do snowboard, meet buddies in Chamonix in the Alps, and I manage everything. But it's a bit like I would say the real life of medicine or entrepreneur, because at this time I used to manage my sponsored, like doing some kind of fundraising, some roadshow, a bit of marketing. You also manage risk because when you're going upside down on a 30 feet jump, you have to manage the risk. And it's a bit like when I plan a CTO procedure, I look at the film, the movie, I stay calm. I use every single information to treat. And it was a bit the same when I used to do some big tricks, some 900 upside down. I was so passionate, I think so much about it that the first time it goes. you see, because you prepare a lot. And it's a bit the same with complex PCI and CTO PCI. Of course, you have to listen to advice, and this is one of my momentum to listen to advice, to Sensei like you, read the book, listen. And I like when James and Simon and Colm say to me, "Hey, Benjamin, if you listen to me, if you apply this algorithm, if you are not a dumb at handling the wires, you will make it." And I love this way of mind. It's the opposite of bad faith. CTO PCI is good when it's safe and well executed. So I jumped in.
Wonderful. And then you said that to the skills you learned before, so the training, the fundraising, the focusing, they apply very well for CTO PCI and for entrepreneurship as well. How do you manage to keep focus like this? Has that been always a skill you had, or is something you cultivated? How did you do that?
Or maybe it was an accident, but my little brother, when I used to be sponsored in snowboard, he was 18 years old and he built his own company of snowboarding and skateboarding at this time. And I saw him. He was on the marketing side, did a MBA in the US and back in France. And he was so young. And I admire him. He's one of my sensei. And then I saw that my parents are not entrepreneur, more on the medicine side, but maybe it's one way to follow and not to be afraid. And in France, it's not so easy to be an entrepreneur, especially at this time, 20 years ago. But I think it's the beginning, and I reproduce the same thing with my startup, for example, and by building. We are, with my ex partner, very proud of what we did in Grenoble. We did a very, I would say, famous cat lab with good work. We did research in international RCT, and it was a very good adventure. Unfortunately, it's over now, but I just moved to another center, which is in the same spirit, and that's quite that.
Wonderful. So, do you get nervous? You do very complex cases and you deal with risky situations. Do you get scared? Do you get nervous? How do you handle the stress that comes with this procedure?
Most of the time, I'm nervous if it's strange, but if I know the patient, if my sensation, my feeling with the patient, if I know the patient, I'm a bit nervous. But I'm trying to be a robot, a technician, to apply algorithm. And I think there is no place for feeling in the algorithm of CTO PCI. Maybe it's a personal remark, but I think you have to apply what is working. And I remember one case where it was the father of one of my good friends. Since 6 years, he used to have angina, and in another hospital of the area, they say to him, "No, this artery is blocked. This artery is small. Nobody has to touch it. Keep your pills." And then he had a stress test and came to me because I know his daughter, and he said, "Benjamin, could you tell me what to do? Is there something to do?" And yes, it was obvious that it was 30% of ischemia burden on his MIB scan. And I say, "Yeah, we should open this artery. This artery might not be small." And I was stressed because it was the father of my daughter. So I remember one time when I used to build a CTO meeting, and Stefan Rainfray was coming over. So I took Stefan Rainfray with me, like anti-fear contraphobic object. And we did the case together, and the small artery was at the end 4.5 millimeters. And this guy thanks me every year. He's doing cycling again. And yes, but I'm fear sometimes like this. But I'm trying to not to have fear, because if you have complication, and Gérald Barbeau, one of my sensei, used to say to me, Benjamin, if you have a complication, you will treat it. So you don't have to be afraid about complication. Because if you are afraid about complication, you will go small, put some small stent, and you will have death weeks or months after. And it's in my mind since the beginning. It's a bit why in the US you know more that with the Washington hospital work with IVUS. When you use your IVUS, you put bigger stent, you have more perforation, but you have better outcomes at the end. And this is a bit like I say every year at the university French course. Put bigger stent, maybe a bit more complication, but better outcomes at the end.
Wonderful. And as you say, it could follow the algorithms and be ready to take care of the problem if it arises. But let's say, despite your efforts, things don't go well and there's a bad complication, the patient doesn't do well. How do you deal with that? Do you get depressed? Do you get, how do you feel after something like that?
Yes. Hopefully it's not so often, but I remember a case we did in a live case. It was in another city. And by the way, for live case, if you are not in your usual environment, it's more difficult to address every issues. And it was a retrograde case of an osteolytic CTO. We went through the RCA. The only patent artery was the SIR. The RCA was a bit diseased, and we were about to puncture in the left main, and we protect the left main with a guide extension. So we didn't manage at the beginning, and we blocked the circ at this time, and by this time there was a ST elevation because the RCA was dissected, but we didn't know at this stage, and this lady crashed down. We succeeded to cross, but after it was crashing despite the balloon pump and despite the ECMO, and she has to have ECMO, and unfortunately she died 2 days later. And yes, I was stressed, and we thought about this case, and we discussed about this case with other operators and people, and tried to have lessons for that, because you learn much more from complication than from a success. I was told, of course, by Rainfray, Spratt, and Simon, etc. But
And then, but as you say, you learn, you make the most out of whatever happens, and this is great. But then also when it comes time to push, let's say you're doing a case and it's been a few hours and still things are not working, when do you stop? Do you have any rules in your mind? When is it the contrast, radiation, tired? How do you decide if you push a little more or not?
That's also a hard question, but I'm trying to keep at the algorithm as much as possible. Try to escape a failure technique. And I think I have two big principles: is the X-ray exposure, not more than 3 gray, and the contrast dose. And I think it's really rare, I would say once or twice a year, that we do a procedure more than 2 hours, but it can happen. If I feel that the solution is close, I can continue, but it's very rare that procedure lasts for more than 3 hours. But if you know, in France we have less BMI, less heavy patient, but I try to keep the procedure as fast as possible. It's why I like a hybrid algorithm. I don't like to spend hours with wire handling. I don't feel comfortable. I know that Bill Lombardi, one of my sensei, says that straight wires kills, and knuckle wires don't kill. So you have to go the fast as you can, the fastest as you can, from point A to point B with a knuckle wire, and put your efforts at re-entry. That's my goal. That's
Perfect. Now, you've trained many people, both in your place, your courses. What makes you excited when you see someone who wants to learn?
Good question. I would say the first is enthusiasm. I see very fast if the fellow is enthusiastic, if the guy is enthusiastic. It's not he has to be good handling, and I see in 5 minutes when there is catheterization. When I used to proctor people in Europe, you can see in 5 minutes if the handling is good, because catheterization is key. Passive and active support is key to begin the CTO-PCI. So you have to have this basis, strong basis of cardiac catheterization, cardiac PCI. And then if you have an open-minded, it will work. If you listen to advice, if you apply algorithm, it will work. But enthusiasm is the best thing. Integrity, no bad faith, be open to many things. I have bad souvenir, I would say, of proctoring in different part of Europe. Some people say, "Oh yes, I'm happy that you came because I want to solve every CTO-PCI with Crossboss and Stingray." And I say, "No, it's not the goal, and there is no other tools, no other tips and tricks, and it's not magic. It's just a new tool." And it was funny. So since 6 years, I don't do so many proctoring. I just do a workshop into my hospital. So I have a total control of patient, of team, and I trust my gathering, my people inviting it at this workshop, and I prefer.
Wonderful. Now, in terms of, you've done the amazing clinical work, but also you started your own company, Electroduser, right? And so it's a unique blend of doing this and entrepreneurship and starting something. You mentioned about your brother doing this, but what made you start the company, and how did this process go?
Yeah. Good question also. What I always liked is to be crossover. At the beginning, I was not sure to do interventional cardiology, but I knew that I would like to do a hybrid work, surgery or medicine, or between this, like interventional cardiology. And I love to go with pediatric interventionalists, with neuro interventionalists. I learned to do carotid stenting, which is my second patient. I think it's one of the most beautiful angioplasty after CTO-PCI, because you have to catheterization, you have to be gentle, you have to protect. There are so many things. It's beautiful. And then at the early days of TAVR, we start the TAVR program in our hospital. It was in 2009, 2010. And at this time, I was shocked by the rate of complication due to the temporary probe. And we put some 20,000 euros TAVI into the valve, and the patient was dying about an accessory complication, if I could say. Tamponade, it was between 5 and 10% at the beginning, and it's still between 2 and 6%. And I say to myself, "Oh, I remember Benny Mayer, which is one of my master. I love this guy. I think he invented so many tips and tricks that helps everyday life." And I say, if it works, the transcoronary pacing works in coronary, it might work in the ventricle. And in my private hospital, I called the electrophysiologist and I say, "Yeah, what should I put, the catheter or in the anode or the wire?" "The catheter, Benjamin, of course." And I put the catheter on a wire for balloon valvuloplasty, and it worked. But I said, "No, I'm not a genius. I will read the literature." And it was nothing. So we did the first in-human experience in Grenoble in Lyon. We published 130 patients in catheterization. It was quite difficult at this time because it was really new. And I presented the work at EuroPCR in 2015, and I get insulted by all the panel, all the room, except one of my panelists, who was Alain Cribier. And Alain Cribier protect me, support me. And I remember I say, "Yeah, if this homemade technique is not well adopted, I need to embed to embark this technique into a device." So I think what would be the best device to embark this technique, and that's why I created Electroduser. It's an introducer with electricity with an endovascular anode. And I said to myself, we need a plug and play device. We need a CE mark device. And that's why I jump in that experience like my brother did 20 years sooner. But I didn't know that it's going to be, it would be so difficult to bring a device on the market. But I brought how do you say, my first iteration of the device to Alain Cribier in Rouen. And he said, yeah, it's good, Benjamin. I follow you. I will support you. I don't want some crocodile clamp. Do something better. And I built a team with Lucien Goffard, which is now my CEO, with Marie-Claude Maurice, early adapters, with Max Hamon, one of my Sensei for carotid intervention. And he's very wise, many patents, many companies he built. And at the end, also Jacques Seguin, who invented the core valve, the recourse system, the stentist, the self-expandable stent. And all together, we built that dream, I would say. And we did the first in-human study on 20 PCI and 20 complex PCI and 40 TAVR in 2022. Because we can use it still for CTO PCI or for complex PCI.
So, actually, for the people who don't know it, because I know, many people may not have heard about Electroduser, can you describe it for them? I know it's a sheath, but then people say, well, why don't you just put the pads on the back? So how does it simplify the pacing for people who haven't seen it?
Yeah, of course. Sorry. Because the pain point of direct wire pacing of the wire is that it's unipolar pacing. So in unipolar pacing, your anode, if it's cutaneous or subcutaneous, you have a very high threshold, about 7 to 15 to 20 milliamps. But as soon as you are touching the endothelium or the vascular blood system, you decrease the pacing threshold. So the secret of this device is this is a plastic conductive jacket introducer that you can put in radial, in a vein, in a femoral, whatever you want, and it's decreasing the pacing threshold. It's avoiding the stinging pain, which is important for PCI. And so it's more efficient, it's more reproducible, and you can use it with any metallic core guide wire, which is important, from 008, from rotablator, to 038, TAVR, TMVR, TTVR. But also now we have a new project, a startup in the startup, because it's helpful for screening patient for renal denervation, because you can pace over the wire to screen different patients. So it's another story, but it's important.
No, this is beautiful. And again, you say it's a simple idea. I know people, at least in the US, I know almost no one does it, because you say you have to put an extra skin pads, and then it's complicated. So it's as you say, it's very difficult to do it, especially if the lab doesn't do it. But having a simple one-step solution that you have created, I think that really can.
And it's not FDA approved. It's off-label use of different device. So in France, we are not afraid about the lawyer, the judge. But in the US, in Germany also, it's almost zero, because it's not stamped with CE or FDA. That's the goal. And for STEMI intervention, it's key, because you have a pacing-ready solution at any time. So you have this safety net to protect your patients and to administrate bradycardian drugs. So it's funny.
Perfect. And as you say, this thing sometimes, not sometimes, always, you underestimate how much time it will take and effort from the concept at the beginning to prototype to making. But clearly you have a great team, and this is moving along in the right direction. So what advice would you have for people who are interventionalists or otherwise, and they want to follow? I know it's been painful, but also seems very rewarding. So what would be your advice to people?
I would advise to be perseverant. Passionate, perseverant. Listen to advice. Listen to Sensei. I would say that, and follow your dream. follow your dream.
And now coming back to the personal aspect. So you're a busy clinician, doing education, doing innovation. So how do you make it all work? How do you manage your time?
That's a good question. Time is running, is flying, and it's a big concern because, especially when you have two different jobs like me. But I'm very backed by my spouse, my wife, for the personal side with children. Um, I get up quite early in the morning, 6:30, quite early for French. And when I'm working in the cat lab from 8 to 6 p.m. to 6 7 p.m. depending. I always did a lot of PCI per year, maybe 500 PCI per year, a bit less now. And I'm working for research and literature overnight in the night until 11 noon, and on the weekend also. And now in my new institution, I work for 3 days in the cat lab, and then 2 days for research and my company, which is also research always. And that's quite that. I'm trying to do sports as frequently as I can, like snowboarding. I'm still snowboarding, and I love it again.
And isn't that dangerous? I thought snowboarding is a little dangerous, but I guess obviously you have the experience.
Exact. It's a bit like in CTO PCI. It's dangerous, but you have to manage risk. Yeah, of course. I hit many times my head. I broke almost all the bone of my body. I have also an anecdote because I used to snowboard a lot during my fellowship, and my master used to know it. But one time I broke my ankle by skateboarding. But I was so shameful to say, yeah, I was skateboarding. So I said, no, I was just running, and I twist my ankle. So I made 1 month of clinical research, but I like it too. But I'm not I don't like too much to suffer for sports. Sports for me is patient pleasure only. I would say life is so difficult that I want pleasure at sports, and I'm not doing so much push up and things like this.
How about which one is your favorite book? Do you have a favorite book or a favorite movie?
Movie. I like movie like Drive, for example, because I like the aesthetic. I like historical movie, and I loved, yes, science fiction. I'm not so much science fiction, but I loved Welcome to Gattaca. Very nice movie, predicting movie. And book. I'm shameful because my mother used to be a literature teacher, but I don't read so much. But I loved 1984, George Orwell, things like this, and Maupassant, Guy de Maupassant, a very French author, very nice.
And then how many hours do you sleep? Looks like there's not much time left.
6 hours. 6 hours. Yes.
Okay. And you can function pretty well despite that and feeling good. And
I would say yes and or no. Just to be frank, it's been 4 years that we have trouble with our top management in Grenoble with my partners, and it was very tough. I had back pain, and by the way, when we were supposed to meet in Minneapolis, you remember, I was totally blocked and back in France on a wheeling chair. And I think good health is the body, but it is also the soul, the mind. And if you're better in your mind, you will be better in your body. And this is key. And this is, I think, a key message for young fellows. Don't negligate, like I used to do, your body health, your health in general.
so I remember your back and a lot of pain and all these things. You think it was the lead that did all this? And what have you done since then? Are you using some of the new protection devices or?
So it was the lead, of course. Our job is very demanding for back. we are walking always not in a good balance with one foot lying on the patient, but it's also your well state of mind. And snowboarding was not good for my back also. When you jump and you're landing some 20 feet high. And so everything is bad for that. But all my team had the back problem. So I managed to decrease the radiation rate in my cath lab. And I was allowed to have a half size apron lid. So it helped me a lot. I took also a sports coach at home for 6 years. And since then, it's much better. When I was back to Minneapolis, I had some infiltration. I skipped the surgery, so I was so happy, and it's good for now. But that's that. My dream would be to have a system like Rampart or eggs or like it's going.
So, yeah, no, absolutely, and that's something, as you say, that more and more people are seeing, especially for active lifestyles like yours.
And last thing, because we did a live case with Maro Carino at Swiss CTO PCI last year or 2 years ago, and we did it without apron lid, and it was a game changer. It was so good, and it was a long CTO, and it was so good.
Yeah, I must admit, I've been using the zero gravity, which is a similar thing. The weight is lifted, and that really has made a big difference. But you're right. There's more and more coming up, and I think soon more places will have more of that systems. So Benjamin, again, you've been obviously a power force of nature, essentially, in the field and in innovation and everything else. What keeps you going? What is the motivation? Like, what makes you want to go and get all these things done?
It's funny because I'm not a competitor. Because what I forgot to say that in snowboarding, I used to do freestyle, and I do more photo or video than competition. But I like challenges, personal challenges, and I like to be able to treat the patient, which I could not treat years ago. And I like to give access to innovation to my patient. I may be a spoiled child because I used to have many devices for snowboarding and toys, but it's a bit the same for CTO PCI. If you can have good toys, it's like in high mountain, you need good toys to save your life. You need good toys, good tools to save the life of your patient. And I think it's important to have good gear and equipment for treat at best the patient. And that's what is my passion in PCI, in interventional cardiology.
Wonderful. And then, what are you most proud of? You've done so many things. What are the things that you are the most proud, personally and professionally?
It's a difficult question, but I'm quite proud of my career, I would say. And I did all my career in private practice, which is once again a bit more difficult to be on top, especially in France. And but I like to embark people with me and to create a good team. We built from almost scratch a big interventional cardiology hospital in Grenoble with my partners, Professor Montségu and Dr. Abdelawi. We were quite famous. We had some presidents and some medicine Nobel Prize coming to be treated there. But I'm also proud of what my dream became true. I took this idea, this technique. This technique is used in more than 90% of French centers in France for the direct wire pacing, and I hope to succeed in bringing this device on the market. And yes, I'm proud of that because it was not easy, but again, a question of patience, pugnacity.
Wonderful. Well, clearly you have what it takes, I guess, to persevere and move forward. And if you had to give advice to people who are at an early career stage, early career fellows or early interventional career, what are the key things that would make them successful, that helped you and will help them?
Mm-hmm. Listen to advice, be passionate, be dedicated to the patient. If you are dedicated to the patient, you will be dedicated to your job. I love my job. I think we have the most patient discipline. Cardiology is for me the best. If I would not be a cardiologist, I would be maybe a neurointerventionalist, because they are making progress, for example. Sure. So be nice with people. Be nice with your colleagues. It's important. We do a difficult job, so you have to have good relationship with your colleagues. It's very important. And keep your family close to you, close to your project. Involve them. It's also key, because it's a general balance for me.
Perfect. And speaking of the family, which again is one of those challenges, how do you manage to spend time with them and build a relationship with everything else going on day in and weekends and nights as well?
Yeah. Also, I'm not the best advice giver for that, but I thank again my wife, who admit that I have many projects. I'm not often at home, but I try to spend on the weekend now with the family. I thank her. I thank my 2 kids. I thank also my parents to keep me in the good way, because I remember I was in the 3rd year of medicine school, and my sponsored for snowboard were going very good. And I said to my parents, "Oh, Dad and Mom, I'm gonna quit medicine school for 1 year because it's gone good. I'm going to Argentina, to the US." They said, "No, Benjamin, go back to your work." And I thank them. And so family is important. Family is important. That's we do such a difficult job, and you have to be well supported, well backed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you said it before that it's also the state of mind, and if family life doesn't go well, then often you don't feel quite the same, and performance is going to suffer, the patients as well. So, well, Benjamin, thank you so much. It was wonderful talking to you and learning from you. Congratulations on everything that you are done. Can't wait to see the Electroduser being FDA and CE mark approved, so can actually finally use it. I think will solve one of the problems that we currently have. And again, very excited to see you one of the upcoming meetings.
Thank you so much, Manos. I was so grateful of your invitation. I admire so much. I read all the here. I read all the line of your book, which is here. You can see it. So thank you
again. It's amazing. You can find the time after all this work.
Yeah, just under another Sensei, Andreas Grunzig.
No, thank you. Thanks so again, Benjamin. Thank you for listening to the Sensei podcast.